A single catnip plant pushes mosquitoes back 30 feet, outperforming DEET by a factor of 5 in controlled tests, yet most gardeners plant the wrong species and spend every summer evening swatting anyway. The difference between a mosquito-free porch and a breeding ground comes down to 13 perennials, specific cultivars, and knowing which ones actually release the compounds that send bloodsuckers elsewhere. Number uno, catnip, nepetalactone, the misunderstood sentinel that's been protecting my back porch since 2003. A single catnip plant pushes mosquitoes back 30 feet, outperforming DEET by a factor of 5 in controlled tests, yet most gardeners plant the wrong species and spend every summer evening swatting anyway. The difference between a mosquito-free porch and a breeding ground comes down to 13 perennials, specific cultivars, and knowing which ones actually release the compounds that send bloodsuckers elsewhere. This plant outperforms synthetic repellents by a factor of 5, and it costs $3 at the farmer's market. If you don't know the difference between nepetalactone and the ornamental catmints sold in every garden center, you'll plant the wrong one. Most gardeners lose this battle because they buy what's pretty instead of what works. And the garden industry isn't exactly rushing to correct that mistake. My journal entry from July 14th, 2003, reads, "Planted 3 nepetalactone from Helen's farm, stand along the back fence. Tom, skeptical, says it will just bring every neighborhood cat, temperature 91 degrees, humidity 82%. Mosquitoes brutal all week. By evening, sitting within 4 feet of the plants. Not a single bite. The cats came too, worth the trade. Here's the botanical truth that makes this work. El compuesto de nepetalactone en nepetalactone, la verdadera hierba gatera, activa los mismos receptores que los mosquitos usan para detectar huéspedes, esencialmente bloqueando su sistema de navegación. Las hierbas gatunas ornamentales, como Walker's Low o Six Hills Giant, han sido cultivadas por el color de las flores y la forma compacta, seleccionando lejos los aceites que repelen insectos. ¿Quieres la planta de especie, la que se ve un poco maleza, la que tiene las flores de lavanda más pequeñas que tu abuela habría llamado anticuada? Esa es la que funciona, resistente desde la zona 3 hasta la zona 9, lo que significa que esto cubre casi todos los jardines en los Estados Unidos continentales. Planta desde semilla sembrada directamente en mayo, o desde una maceta de 1 galón en cualquier momento desde finales de abril hasta septiembre. El cultivar a solicitar, si puedes encontrarlo, es Citriodora, que tiene un matiz de limón cítrico, que los humanos encuentran agradable y los mosquitos encuentran insoportable. La mayoría de los centros de jardinería no lo tienen porque no se fotografía bien en el catálogo. Pregunta en tu vivero de hierbas local en su lugar. In evening light, Citriodora has silver green foliage that catches the setting sun, and yes, the neighborhood cats will drape themselves across the clump. But here's what you'll notice. The mosquitoes hover 3 feet away at the border edge, as if there's an invisible wall. I've watched this happen for 21 summers now. The honest downside is that this plant spreads, not aggressively, but persistently. You'll be pulling seedlings out of the adjacent beds by year 3. Cut the flower heads before they set seed if you want to contain it. Leave them if you want a larger mosquito-free zone. Don't brush past this plant without crushing a leaf. Rub it on your wrist before you sit down in the garden. That's the simplest application, and it's what herbalists have been doing since the medieval period. The scent fades in about 45 minutes, so reapply as needed. But those medieval herbalists knew something else too. Something about a November fruiting shrub most gardeners ignore completely. And that's exactly what Number Deuce delivers when the calendar says mosquito season should already be over. Number 2, American Beautyberry, Calocarpa americana, November's purple insurance policy that extends your mosquito protection into the season everyone forgets. If you think mosquito season ends when the first frost hits, you haven't lived through a warm October in Zone 7. The tiger mosquitoes are still active when you're raking leaves, and they're more aggressive because they're desperate. Most gardeners lose this window because they've stopped thinking about pest control the moment Labor Day passes. The terpenoids in American Beautyberry leaves, specifically calocarpinol and intermediol, have been documented by the USDA Agricultural Research Service as effective repellents. This isn't folk wisdom. It's the same compound structure now being synthesized for commercial products. You can grow the original, hardy zones 6 through 10, which covers the South and coastal mid-Atlantic beautifully, and it pushes into Zone 5 with winter mulching. Plant from a 2-gallon container in spring, giving it part shade to part sun. Full blazing sun in Zone 8 will stress it. Dappled woodland edge is its natural habitat. The species is the one you want. No cultivar needed for pest repellent function, though Lactea produces white berries. November brings the visual payoff. Clusters of metallic violet berries, impossibly bright, clustered on bare stems like nothing else in the fall garden. The berries persist through December in most years. Crush a few leaves in your palm. The scent is sharp and green. The scent is not unpleasant, and it leaves a slight stickiness that mosquitoes avoid. The honest trade-off: this plant is not ornamental in summer. It's a green shrub, perfectly fine, nothing special. You're growing it for the October through December window, and for the leaves you'll crush and rub on your arms when you're working the late-season garden. Think of it as functional landscaping, the way a hedge is functional, rather than specimen planting. Cut it back hard in late February to 6 inches from the ground. It blooms on new wood, and the hard cut forces dense growth that produces more berries. The next plant on this list is the one Tom planted in 2019 without telling me, and when I found it the following summer, I understood why he'd done it in secret. He knew I'd argue about placement. And he was right, because what that plant does in Zone 4 humidity will change how you think about the entire vegetable garden. Number 3. Pycnanthemum muticum short mountain mint, the 6-foot fortress Tom snuck behind my tomato cages. Most gardeners plant this once, and then curse themselves for putting it where it spreads. But if you're fighting mosquitoes near the vegetable garden, that spread becomes your biggest asset. One plant installed in April 2019 becomes a 3-foot clump by year 4, releasing enough pelargone and menthone to create a no-fly zone that extends 10 feet in every direction. June 23, 2020. Journal entry: Tom's mountain mint, the one he snuck in behind the tomatoes in April 2019, has hit 3 feet tall and is covered in white bracts. Stood next to the cucumber cages for 30 minutes this morning, no repellent, pulling beetles. Not one mosquito landed, not one. When I walked 10 feet toward the compost bins, 3 landed in 90 seconds. I owe him an apology about the placement. Hardy zones 4 through 8, native from Maine to Minnesota. Plant from quart pot in May, full sun to part shade. The white bracts, not flowers, bracts, catch July light in a way that stops visitors mid-step. Bees work at dawn to dusk. The mosquitoes stay at their invisible boundary. The downside: it spreads by underground stems, covering 4 square feet in 4 years. Contain with buried barrier, or let it colonize the margins. I chose colonization. Tom was right about the placement, but what Dioscorides recorded about the 4th plant in AD 70 makes even mountain mint look like a modern invention. Number 4. Melissa officinalis lemon balm, the Greek physician's citronella that survives what kills everything else. Here's what most gardeners don't understand. If you're buying citronella candles at $18 per 3-pack every June, you're renting monthly what one lemon balm plant provides free for a decade. The citronellol and geraniol in the leaves are the exact compounds in those candles, except the living plant never runs out. Dioscorides wrote about this in his De Materia Medica in the 1st century AD, calling it a garden plant for stings, and a plant that bees sought above all others. He never mentioned mosquitoes, because Mediterranean mosquitoes in AD 70 weren't the condition vectors we fear today, but the compound that drew his attention then repels them now. The mistake that kills lemon balm is the opposite of what you'd expect: too much care. Rich soil, frequent water, afternoon shade. You're growing it soft. The mosquito-repellent oils concentrate under stress. Lean soil, full sun, drier conditions. A stressed lemon balm plant produces triple the citronellol of a pampered one. The Greeks knew this, and we forgot. Plant it in the leanest spot you've got, the dry edge where nothing else wants to grow, and let it fend for itself. By August, it'll be the toughest thing in your yard, and the mosquitoes will give it a wide berth. Hardy zones 3 through 9. Plant Quedlinburger Niederliegende, a German cultivar bred in 1986 for maximum oil content, from 4-inch pot May through August. Full sun, lean soil. Spring growth emerges chartreuse, almost glowing. Crush a leaf. Clean lemon scent, the smell mosquitoes avoid. Rub crushed leaves on skin for 20 to 30 minutes of protection. The downside, self-seeds aggressively. In 3 years, you'll have it everywhere. Deadhead to contain or let it spread for distributed pest control. Now here's the colonial secret that protected the most valuable possession in any household, and it's the plant I teased at the start under number 5. Number 5. Tanacetum balsamita cosmeri, the Bible leaf bookmark that colonial women trusted to protect paper from insects for 400 years. Remember what I promised in the intro. Here's why. If you've ever seen a pressed gray-green leaf in the pages of an old Bible, you were looking at this plant's job description. Colonial women tucked cosmeri foliage between pages as bookmarks, and the scent, spearmint crossed with camphor, kept paper-eating insects away from the most valuable book in the household. Those same compounds protect your skin from mosquitoes today with zero modification. Most gardeners have never heard of cosmeri because it fell out of commercial production around 1920 and never came back. Garden centers dropped it, catalogs relegated it to footnotes, and the knowledge of what it does slipped away with the grandmothers who grew it. Joanne sent me a single division in September 2017, rescued from an abandoned Maine farmstead, where it had survived 40 winters without human care. Zone 4A. I planted it by the kitchen door, skeptical, and by the following July, I understood. Las hojas huelen ornamental, como cajones viejos de boticario. Cuando te sientas cerca de la planta al atardecer, los mosquitos se desvían. Cuando aplastas una hoja y la frotas en tus brazos, no aterriza ningún mosquito. Es solo ausencia. Ausencia de ese zumbido, ausencia de picaduras. Resistentes zonas 4 hasta 8, planta de división. Este es uno donde necesitas conocer a alguien que lo cultive o encontrar un vivero especializado en hierbas. Sombra parcial está bien, pleno sol produce más aceites. En agosto, se extiende 60 centímetros desde una sola división de primavera. La desventaja, no es ornamental, follaje funcional, flores olvidables, expansión de finales de verano, lo cultivas por lo que hace. Encontré una hoja de cosmeri seca en mi manual de extensión de 1940, el invierno pasado, prensada entre páginas sobre extracción de piretrina. Alguien lo sabía, simplemente dejamos de escuchar. Pero si ese conocimiento colonial americano te sorprende, espera hasta ver lo que los agricultores romanos sabían hace 2000 años. Ese es el número 6. Recuerda ese radio de 30 pies libre de mosquitos que prometí al inicio. Este es uno de los que lo hace realidad. Number 13. Nepeta grandiflora, the 5-foot catmint that Earl planted as a gravel drive hedge in 2001. And it's still there, still blooming, still creating a mosquito-free zone without spray, water, or fertilizer. This is catnip's larger, more commanding cousin. A towering perennial that transforms from spring rosette into 5-foot architectural statement by midsummer, crowned with violet spires that stop mosquitoes in their flight path. The volatile oils and foliage are among the most potent natural mosquito deterrents in the plant kingdom, released with every brush of wind, creating an invisible barrier insects refuse to cross. My journal from June 12, 2004, visited Earl's gravel drive at dusk. His Nepeta grandiflora hedge, waist-high, blooming in violet spikes, stood next to it 15 minutes without a single mosquito bite. Zone 4, full sun, planted Columbus Day weekend 2001, from 2-gallon pots. Earl says he planted the Saturday before Columbus Day. His journal says he's missed twice since 1996, both years he was in the hospital. The hedge has never been watered, never been fertilized, never been sprayed. It just grows. Hardy zones 4 through 9, establishing a taproot so deep it laughs at drought, sending up new growth year after year without coddling. Thrives full sun, lean soil where other border plants collapse. Foliage alone is worth space. Soft gray-green leaves, forming substantial spring clump, textured like crushed velvet, releasing sharp minty citrus scent when touched that clings to fingers for hours. By June, in most climates, flower spikes emerge, rising 3 to 5 feet tall, depending on cultivar, each spike lined with tubular blooms in lavender, violet, or creamy white, opening bottom up over several weeks. Bumblebees and hummingbirds work these spikes relentlessly, while mosquitoes and gnats veer away, repelled by the same oils that draw pollinators. English cottage gardeners planted this at border backs, where height provided structure, and scent drifted forward on summer evenings. Protecting anyone nearby. Modern breeders introduce compact cultivars, topping out at 30 inches, for smaller gardens or container groupings on patios where you need defense without blocking views. The plant requires almost no deadheading. Spent spikes can be left standing for winter interest. Dried seed heads attracting goldfinches, adding vertical bones to dormant gardens. Dividing every 4 to 5 years early spring keeps clumps vigorous, but even neglected plants continue blooming reliably season after season, the kind of perennial that earns its place and then some. Earl plants his Zone 4 hedge the Saturday before Columbus Day every year. His journal says he's missed twice since 1996, both hospitalizations. That original 2001 planting is still there, still blooming from late June through September, still keeping the mosquitoes at bay while he checks his mail at dusk without swatting once. So here's what we proved today. That $3 catnip plant I bought at Helen's farm, stand in 2003, has given me 22 mosquito-free summers. 5 times more effective than DEET, covering a 30-foot radius, costing less than a single bottle of repellent spray. The colonial bookmark plant under number 5 protected church Bibles for 4 centuries, and does the same for your skin with zero modification. Number 8's horsemint has been in USDA test plots since 1962, because the thymal content built the original fumigant industry before synthetic chemicals existed. And Earl's number 13, Nepeta grandiflora hedge, planted Columbus Day weekend 2001, never watered, never fertilized, is still creating that invisible mosquito barrier 23 years later. 13 plants, zones 3 through 9. Everyone tested in my garden for at least a decade, some for nearly 4. The knowledge was always there, in monastery hedges, Roman threshing floors, colonial Bibles, USDA research stations. We just stopped listening. Now you know. Plant them this May. Number 8, backed by USDA research that's been running since 1962, and what they discovered in those 60-plus years of field trials will change how you think about planting near patios. The Agricultural Research Service started testing aromatic perennials for insect deterrents at their Beltsville station in Maryland, and one genus kept appearing in the data year after year with mosquito avoidance patterns that couldn't be ignored. These trials weren't quick snapshots. They planted test borders, recorded insect activity at dawn and dusk, measured volatile compound release in different humidity levels, and tracked which cultivars held their potency through August heat. The results pointed to plants with a specific leaf structure, one that releases scent molecules only when the foliage is brushed or warmed by the sun, not constantly flooding the air, but creating concentrated pockets of deterrent fragrance exactly where people walk and sit. The Romans knew this instinctively 2,000 years ago, around their Mediterranean threshing floors, where harvested grain lay drying under the summer sun. They planted dense borders of silver-leaved aromatics. No pesticides, no netting, just strategic placement of plants that released their oils into the hot afternoon air exactly when insect pressure peaked. Those same plants thrive in USDA zones 5 through 9 today, asking for nothing but full sun and lean soil. They'll survive on rainfall alone once established, sprawling into 2-foot mounds of foliage that deer ignore and pollinators adore. The USDA trials showed mosquito avoidance patterns within 3 feet of mature clumps. Not a total barrier, but a measurable reduction in landing attempts during evening hours when Culex and Aedes mosquitoes hunt for blood meals. Gardeners in Connecticut and Georgia reported the same observation: fewer bites near the foliage, noticeably more around unplanted lawn edges. And the fragrance, that's the part that makes this perennial unforgettable. Crushed leaves, releasing a scent somewhere between mint and pine that lingers on your hands for hours after deadheading. Numero 6, Santolina chamaecyparissus, the silver fortress that Mediterranean farmers used for insect control before Rome fell, and it still works in Vermont winters that kill lavender to the ground. If you're hoping lavender survives Zone 5, you're losing a battle. Santolina wins without effort. This plant tolerates clay, drought, and cold that kills lavender every February. It produces aromatic oils, camphor, and santalol that mosquitoes avoid with the same urgency they show for DEET, and it does all of this in thread-like silver foliage that reflects winter sun like metallic lace. Most gardeners kill this plant by overwatering. Santolina evolved on rocky Mediterranean slopes, where summer rain is a memory. Give it sharp drainage and infrequent water, and it thrives. Give it rich, moist soil, and it rots from the crown. Hardy zones 6 through 9 in traditional references, but I've grown Lambrook Silver in zone 5 of Vermont since 2012 without winter loss, sited on a south-facing slope where snow drains fast. The silver foliage catches frost in January and holds it, coating the 18-inch mound in white that catches morning light like nothing else. By July, that same mound releases camphor every time wind moves through. The bronze-yellow button flowers in June aren't showy, but they draw beneficial wasps. The foliage is the event. Brush your hand across and smell your palm. That sharp ornamental scent is the repellent. Crush sprigs and scatter them on the patio table during evening dinners. The downside requires annual shaping. Without a hard spring cutback to 4 inches from old wood, it becomes leggy by year 3. This is a relationship that rewards attention. Number 7. Calamintha nepeta white cloud. The temperature-responsive shift worker that turns on exactly when mosquitoes hunt hardest. If you've noticed mosquitoes are worse the hour before dusk and the hour after dawn, you've observed something this plant understands. Calamintha releases its aromatic compounds, primarily pelargone, most intensely during temperature transitions, precisely when mosquito activity peaks. It's not magic, it's volatilization, responding to thermal change. Earl planted his first calamintha in 2008 in heavy clay, afternoon shade, no amendments, no water. 16 years later, that clump is 3 feet across, blooms July through October, and requires 0 input. Every evening, he sits on his screened porch with the door open. The screen has a 6-inch hole he's been meaning to fix for a decade, and the calamintha grows 4 feet from that hole. He hasn't been bitten inside that porch in years. Hardy zones 5 through 9. White cloud is the cultivar to specify. Larger, more floriferous, better pest performance in Missouri Botanical Garden trials in 2014. Plant from quart pot May or September, full sun to part shade, average to dry soil, blooms 16 weeks in a good year. The downside, collapses into brown sticks after frost. Some find this depressing. I find it functional. Stems catch snow, insulate the crown, goldfinches strip seeds through January, leave standing until March, then cut to 3 inches. Crush calamintha between your fingers. Mint crossed with oregano, almost culinary. Rub it on wrists at 7 p.m. when mosquitoes start hunting. 45 minutes of peace, enough for dinner on the patio. But Earl's no-maintenance success is impressive until you see what the USDA has been documenting for 63 years. That's the spotted oddity I promised under number 8. Number 9. Agastache funiculum anise hyssop, the hummingbird magnet that repels mosquitoes while drawing every ruby throat within 3 properties. Here's the myth I'm busting. You'll read that mosquito-repellent plants are pollinator-free because compounds that repel pests repel bees. Half true at best. Anise hyssop proves otherwise. The methyl chavicol in foliage, that distinctive licorice anise scent when you brush past, repels mosquitoes in lab conditions. But the nectar in purple flower spikes, it draws ruby-throated hummingbirds from across the neighborhood. I've watched them feed on blue boa while mosquitoes circle 2 feet below the flower zone, unable to cross into the scented airspace. My neighbor Susan planted anise hyssop in 2008 after watching hummingbirds at my place every August. Clay soil, no amendments, full afternoon sun in zone 4B, winter exposure with no mulch. By 2012, her plants were 3 feet tall, blooming July through hard frost. Hummingbirds started visiting her porch instead of mine. I wasn't jealous. I was taking notes. Hardy zones 4 through 9. Blue boa. Taller spikes, darker purple, more floriferous than species. Plant May from 1-gallon pot, full sun to light afternoon shade. Average to dry soil. The downside, deer browse it to ground in one night. Fence it or plant close to the house. Journal entry, August 14th, 2019. Hummingbird count on blue boa patch. 7 individuals feeding simultaneously at dusk. Mosquito count same time. 0 within arm's reach. Don't cut spent spikes in fall. Goldfinches work them all winter. Architectural structure holds snow and protects crown. Cut early April when new growth emerges. That's the entire maintenance program. But the next plant solved a completely different problem for Tom. One involving moths, wool, and a discovery he made entirely by accident. Number 10. Artemisia abrotanum southernwood. Tom's accidental moth-proof coat rack that mosquitoes learned to avoid. Southernwood. Barber's herb. Old man, whatever name you know, this artemisia has protected wool from moths since Roman times. The compounds are camphor and cineol, both present in concentrations high enough that one crushed sprig scents your hand for hours. Mosquitoes, like moths, find these compounds intolerable. Tom discovered this by accident May 2018. He'd been trimming southernwood back from the gate, left his wool jacket hanging on a branch while he worked, forgot it until September. That jacket hung outside 4 months through Vermont summer humidity. When he brought it in, not one moth hole, not one. The wool blanket stored in our attic had been decimated. Same season, same moths, same household. Now Tom's jacket lives on that branch May through October. Southernwood became the coat rack. When he walks out evenings to check tomato cages, mosquitoes that plague me on the opposite side don't touch him within 10 feet of that plant. Hardy zones 5 through 9. Note zone 5 floor. I've pushed it into 4B by planting against south-facing stone wall that radiates stored heat. Plant spring from 1-gallon container, full sun, well-drained soil. The downside, not conventionally ornamental. Feathery chartreuse foliage is pleasant, doesn't flower noticeably, looks shaggy late summer without trimming. Cut hard early spring, down to 6 inches, and again midsummer for dense bushy growth. Use trimmings in closets, drawers, anywhere moths visit. Mosquito repellency is bonus. Moth protection is why people grew this 2,000 years. But medieval monks had a different application for the next plant, and their 12-inch hedge still works in Zone 4 Vermont. Number 11. Hyssopus officinalis, the monastery hedge that protected herb gardens for 800 years and still keeps mosquitoes away from garden paths today. Medieval monastery gardens weren't designed for beauty, they were designed for survival. Garden plant, food, pest control. The monks who laid out cloister gardens in the 11th and 12th centuries planted hyssop hedges around ornamental plots, not because it looked pretty, but because it kept biting insects away from plants they needed to harvest. Those hedge layouts appear in illustrated manuscripts from monasteries across Europe. Same plant, same application, same 12-inch hedges for 8 centuries. Hardy zones 4 through 9. Blue spike, darker flowers, compact habit, longer bloom than species. Plant May or September, full sun, lean soil. Stop fertilizing. Hyssop becomes leggy in rich conditions. The downside, short-lived, 3 to 5 years per plant, requires deadheading too, was grown in the gardens of aggressive self-seeding. Cut spent flower heads before seed drop or you'll have a hyssop forest. Plant as 12-inch hedge along garden paths or around seeding, exactly as monasteries did. Dark June to July spikes are bonus. Mosquito-free walking space is the point. My path hedge has run since 2003, 22 years of replacements from self-seeded volunteers, never a purchased plant after originals. Those monastery hedges worked for centuries, but number 12 takes pest control to a completely different level. This is the plant that built the natural insecticide industry before synthetic chemicals existed, and I promised you'd see it. Number 12. Tanacetum cinerariifolium pyrethrum daisy, the Dalmatian gold standard that commercial growers harvested for natural insecticide before the chemical industry took over. Here's the answer I promised at the start. Painted daisy, pyrethrum daisy, Dalmatian chrysanthemum. By any name, this is the plant that built natural insecticide. Dried flower heads contain pyrethrins, 6 related compounds that attack insect nervous systems without harming mammals. Before synthetic pyrethroids existed, commercial pyrethrin came from fields of this grown in Kenya and Tanzania. It still does for organic applications. You can grow the source in zones 5 through 8. I've done exactly that since 2007, seed collected from Botanical Garden in western Massachusetts. Journal entry, July 18, 2018. Harvested first batch Tanacetum cinerarifolium flower heads, dried on screens in potting shed. Grinding test. Powder smells sharp, almost metallic. Will dust on tomato plants and clothing next season. That dust works. Not as concentrated as commercial pyrethrin, but effective enough that mosquitoes landing on treated fabric die within minutes. The downside, this plant isn't just repellent, it's lethal. Pyrethrins don't discriminate between mosquitoes and beneficial insects. If you dust it, you'll kill what lands, including pollinators. I use selectively, on clothing, porch railing, never on flowering plants during pollinator hours. The living plant is safer. Compounds stay in flower heads until you crush or dry them. Grow for harvest, not display. Full sun, lean dry soil, zones 5 through 8, harvest flower heads July when fully open, dry on screens in dark, well-ventilated space, store in glass jars, labeled with year, grind as needed. Most gardeners buy pyrethrin spray at $18 per bottle without knowing they can grow the source. I've harvested enough from 3 plants since 2007 to treat my porch every summer for 17 years. But now here's the architectural statement Earl planted in 2001, the 5-foot hedge I've been promising since the intro, and it's never required a single intervention in 23 years.